all of the instruments that we're using have quite rigid associations of what their places are in the canon of music. A double bass does this in music, a banjo does this in music. They have really, really defined functions. And so when you have musicians who are pulling from the total opposite of those associations, like Luca is thinking about banjo like a post-punk guitarist. Alan's playing double bass like he's in the Replacements, like it's like that kind of thing. And, Tia's coming from like playing in noise bands and, trying to kill some of the baggage of classical music. And Jay, doesn't really like drums in a conventional way. Doesn't really like what you would call, a rock beat.
Hello, my name is Gavin Berger. I make vinyl record, music, and physical media related content. And today I am lucky enough to be sitting down with 4 out of 5 of the members of Australian Zone, Any Young Mechanic, Jay, Sam, Tia, and Alan. Guys, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us, Gavin.
Thanks for having us.
Let's see, where's Young Mechanic at? When did you release new place? There's a new place on the market. It's been a few weeks, right?
Yeah, it came out on the 13th of Feb. Snug Barber came out a month before that, January 16th.
Yeah.
And then the next one is coming out on March 13th.
Is that the 13th as well?
Yeah,
Oh,
double
man.
13.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got 2 songs out, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
It's been a long time to put them out.
Yeah, it is also, it feels like the songs have been released a lot longer than they actually have been. Like someone was talking to me, it's like, oh yeah, you've been releasing music for like, a month and a half. It's like, what? It feels like forever. Yeah, it's good to get going. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
About it.
On your YouTube pages, you've got like live performances of, I assume, upcoming songs that have been out for months. So yeah, I'm sure from your point of view, when did you write Snug Barber?
Like 2023 sometime, I want to say, like maybe April. It was very slow, the weather. I wrote it on mandolin and it was very slow and I was going to throw it away. And then Jay was like, but what if it was really fast? It would be good.
It's a classic drummer BPM
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
Wait, hang on.
You're like, let's speed this up.
Yeah.
And what if you give me something to do?
Yeah, no, there's a video that I keep thinking about of this Australian band called Pop Up Music where they were talking about making their third album, and there's some song they talk about, and the drummer pipes up and goes, "Oh, this one I wanted to keep because it's the quick one, and I wanted to keep one of the quick ones." That's always in the back of my mind whenever I pipe up like that.
Well, so then before we get into it any further, why don't you guys say the instruments that you play? Because I know you all play multiple instruments. And again, like we were talking about before, I wish I was a musician. It seems so fun to be able to be talented and play multiple instruments.
I play violin on the album that's coming up, and then sometimes play a little bit of clarinet and synth.
It's true. I play acoustic guitar and I sing.
I play bass, a double bass on this record, and then occasionally I take a walk on the wild side and play a little electric bass.
That's good. I play the drums and sing backing vocal. And there's a song I played Glockenspiel on, but that's a secret.
I kind of like the drum version these days. It's nice.
Yeah. The Glockenspiel thing is funny. That's the thing. I'm glad it's recorded, but yeah, we don't really play it that way anymore. So it's a fun little archive of that. But I will say as well, I only started learning to play guitar when I was 20. So it's never too late to like learn an instrument. That's where I write most of my songs now is guitar. And I wouldn't call myself a guitarist, but you can get yourself to. You can always. It's never too late. It's just my reiteration on if you want to learn how to play an instrument.
Yeah, that makes me feel better. So I guess, if you started at 20, I guess I should have started playing 6 years ago. Ugh.
What's that saying that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago and the second best time is now?
And quote that. And who said that? Jay said that? You're the first one to say that? Somebody write that down. Flip that.
He's just always coming up with this stuff. That's what I like about the band so much. There's just always these great quotes flying around.
Speaking of great quotes, a lot of your song names, titles, they're all I think, very fun, unique kind of sayings. How do you come up with your song titles and even some of the more niche lyrics?
That's a good question. I don't know. Like, it's kind of hard to say because it's just a lot of like when you're ruminating on something for a long time and you basically trying to find a new way of saying something that is very much not a new feeling. And I do feel like in terms of like unique or niche titles or lines and stuff, the one of the few benefits of the internet is that we live in a time where you can think that you've had a really original phrase and then look it up to see if anyone's done it before and effectively have it be relatively confirmed as to whether or not that phrase or that idea has been like crystallized in the public lexicon like that in the last, 100 years or whatever. And so that's kind of handy. Like I will definitely, if I want something to be unique, I will definitely like Google it. Be like, does anyone said it this way before? And then if someone has, then it will probably need to be tweaked.
This is not really related to like how the band names songs or albums or whatever, but I was reading in a book I'm reading this morning. It's like this really interesting question about like the title of a poem. Does it start the poem or does it sit outside of it? Like where does the title exist within that art piece? And I think we've had kind of similar conversations to that of like not loving when things are named like untitled or something that like I mean sometimes it is like a lyric from the song, like something that gets repeated a lot. And that feels most natural, but yeah, I feel like naming things is a really fun and like interesting part of the artistic process that sometimes can get a little bit left behind. It's like another opportunity.
It's a big part of how you can make an impression or define something, and I feel like it does occasionally fall by the wayside, especially if you're working in sort of abstract parameters. Sometimes your title is an opportunity to provide the anchor for that abstraction, or if you're working in very obvious parameters, your title is an opportunity to abstract that to some degree. It's like you can use it either way.
Yeah, it should be very purposeful and like not just something that is like a last minute thought.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also think like hanging out, like everybody in the band has a very like cares about sort of like sticky language. In it's like we'll be on tour and there'll be like a phrase or a joke that keeps coming up for a month, and it's like, well, that must be worthwhile then if we keep wanting to make this joke. Or like, I mean, this is maybe one of Jay's quotes or a quote that I've heard him say that I now think is his. It's like, what is it? A song is an idea that you want to come back to, or a feeling you want to come back to.
A song is a thought you want to have again. I hold that as a tenet of why songs are worth going back to, because those are the things your brain latches onto. But I could never claim it as my own quote because it's in a book I read by Jeff Tweedy called How to Write One Song.
Oh, okay, sorry. You had me going for a second. Then I was like, "Wow, that's really good." But it's better to give credit. It's better to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, I think that guy knows a thing or two about it.
I think that's a really interesting way to think about songwriting, especially with you guys, because you've been almost working for so long on what is now this debut album. There's so much more time to think about it. And while I have nothing against artists where, they'll spend a day, record a new song each hour, and then they go, there's the album. And it's like, I think that there's a different uniqueness and something you can get out of an album like that. I'm sure that songs, when you sit with it, which obviously now I'm sure all the songs have been kind of in their finalized versions for a while. Could you ever see yourself being in the headspace of going, all right, we're going to take a weekend and record a whole album? Or do you think that the process that you work the best at is, let's really think about it and make sure it's something we really believe in?
Well, it's funny, right? Because like, yes, I feel like we do really consider, what an album is and what it's going to feel like. And there's a lot of thought that goes into that. But the way we actually made this album, so we recorded it in 3 days and we rehearsed it for maybe a month and a half.
Yeah.
So it's been done for a really, really long time, and
it hasn't been a like.
No, we haven't
boiling away. It's kind of.
I think we like and are interested in that process too. But yeah, for this album, it was this like very succinct kind of moment in time, very focused on capturing something live and like present as it was.
Yeah.
But obviously, we've now been sitting with the songs and playing them live for ages, and they've definitely shifted and morphed from the way that we recorded them, which is nice. It's kind of funny listening to the songs come out officially now and being like, I don't really play it like that anymore. Or it's interesting.
I think it's difficult. I think, those processes also have a lot to do with solo artists versus bands sometimes. I think when you've got five musicians, it's very hard to maintain equilibrium if you're doing something over 6 months in terms of like a sort of equality of ideas or like an equality of identity. Whereas if you're in the room and you've jammed something and everyone is playing their parts and that's what it is, then the equality is kind of there, and you don't have to try and retrospectively balance things out or go, oh wait, there's like we've done a few too many days of guitar here, like I don't know, it kind of balances itself out kind of naturally, I feel like. So for the moment we're sort of interested in a bit of both, where it's like the song takes time, kind of. Sometimes songs happen quickly, sometimes they don't. And then the rehearsal is long in a sense, but really it's mostly just let's play the song this week, let's play it next week. What's changed about it? What's better about it? Is everyone happy with how they're sounding?
Yeah.
And then there's really not much more to think about other than capturing that. Getting that right.
Do you think that the songs, do you think that when you perform them and when you think about them, that they have a different meaning to you versus even the very first concept of it or the very first draft or demo versus what's recorded on the album versus playing it live now?
Yeah, it does start to get quite confusing, especially because the process of kind of getting these songs out in the world has been quite elongated, and also requires like the creation of like different mediums of art, because it's like, because I've been working on the single covers for these things, a lot of the thought process is like, okay, well, what time and what concept am I trying to connect back to now? Is it like, am I trying to connect back to the time in which we recorded the album and how that feels, the time in which in which I wrote the song, or, it's like kind of a mush of time, and it becomes very, very difficult there are so many memories wrapped into the process of making a record like this that it does start to become quite difficult to pick out individual pieces of things. And even when you do it, like even if I could go back to the nugget of like that was the reason I decided to do this, it starts to feel hollow because it's taken on so much more than that in the process of like collaboration and trying to create like a visual world to it as well.
Yeah. Where did Any Young Mechanic come from? How did you guys all meet each other? How did Any Young Mechanic come to be?
Do you want to do the story, Jay? I feel like you're pretty good at it.
Yeah, this is kind of...
It started from Sam and I met in first year of uni, 2019. We were both doing a pop music course at Adelaide University. We were just jamming. We were jamming a lot, and COVID and stuff, like we couldn't really perform or do anything like that. So it was a lot of just writing and gigging around. But we wanted to make records, and part of that was Sam got in touch with Tia through a creative writing. Well, they were in a creative writing course together, but obviously knew that each other were musicians, and Sam got Tia to play some session stuff on some of the records that we were making. And then Sam asked them to join the band properly in 2022. So there was the three of us with a different bassist, with a few different other bassists actually. It was a lot of poaching through other bands in the Adelaide scene. So there was a folk band called Irie that Tia and Alan were in. And there was a band called War Room, which Luca and Tia were in. And there was a band called Cagefly, which Alan, Tia, and Clara were in. And so it was through playing gigs around the scene that Sam was like, actually, I'd like these people to join this band. And especially, I would say, especially Irie, the sort of folk sound that was going on there. I think Sam was like, this is how I want the music to sound more like.
Like, I'd listen to some Sufjan Stevens here and there, and then showing up and it's like, oh, wow, I didn't know this could still happen now. That's good,
Yeah. And so I think that a lot has been made of the fact that then, because Tia was doing a classical degree at the uni, and then Alan was as well, and then Lucas started doing the jazz thing. So I think a lot has been made because we all went to the conservatorium, that it was like we all met at uni. But it's sort of running PR for the con in a way that, like, they didn't encourage the streams to mix. Like, me and Sam knew each other because we were both doing the pop course. Tia and Alan knew each other because they were both doing the classical course. But like, they did not, like, these sorts of like potpourri, like oh, let's all get the courses to swim in a big swimming pool. Like it didn't run like that. It was the local scene that's like wanting to make music. Because there's a lot of people in those courses that are quite happy to just like study and become like page turners for, which is fine. But like, definitely the university setup was not conducive to bands. It was always the local scene. It was always like the DIY approach of people wanting to play music, cool music that they'd written themselves together. I hope that's a decent summary.
Yeah, that's good.
Jay, you had touched upon the folk scene and stuff. I wanted you to also talk a little bit about the genre that you consider you guys are in, because I think another reason why I'm incredibly drawn to Any Young Mechanic is already kind of like what you were saying, Sam. I feel like I haven't heard anything else like it. That when I first heard them, the one clip of There's a New Place on the Market from the 3D radio, it was kind of like this should have a timestamp of like the 1960s or something. Like I didn't realize it was possible to put all of these instruments together in this way and for it to come out like this. It feels very niche in a time when there's every single kind of music. So you would think most genres, there could be a theory of something being overdone. And maybe I just haven't heard the alt folk, etc. scene. It feels so niche in a time where, streaming and everything. If you could just talk about what you guys consider your genre and sound and how you kind of came to it.
Well, I guess it's kind of I mean, I have a really hard time talking about it. I mean, like, yeah, Jay's got kind of a snappier thing. Jay can do the kind of snappy thing on what we would say for sort of quick explanation purposes, what it sounds like just like physically. But as far as what the intentions are, I think that's a little bit more complicated. Maybe.
Yeah, I just started saying it was indie rock with acoustic instruments or chamber instruments. Indie rock with chamber instruments.
Genre is really confusing, and I think the thing you're saying about, and that's very kind of you. I don't really want to take that for granted, but the phenomenon of it feeling new, even though a lot of the textures are kind of do hark back to a different time to a degree. Sometimes when you take on a banjo or you take on a double bass or violin and sort of more folk country aesthetics, there's also a pastiche in the writing. So there's also like, and now I have to sing about this kind of thing because I'm that kind of musician. That doesn't interest me. So like the content of the songs is as modern as I can make it, I hope, but just communicated in maybe a more archaic structure and maybe more archaic diction from time to time. But that doesn't mean that I want to be singing about the old days just because, I'm playing an acoustic guitar. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that I don't find that particularly interesting.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of that might come from, I mean, obviously what you were saying earlier of solo work versus working in a group, as well as I'm sure each of you having similar but different musical interests that you all kind of bring something a little different that like, if you didn't have Alan doing a stand-up bass or having a banjo or drums, or I'm sure some very niche kinds of drums or niche different kinds of pianos that have different names that I don't know because I don't know about pianos. And also Tia playing violin or viola, and also having a different Clara playing the cello, that all of those elements come together. And I don't know what question actually I was going to ask with that whole build up. I think something about influences and how that kind of got everything to be where it is.
All of the instruments that we're using have quite rigid associations of what their places are in the canon of music. A double bass does this in music. A banjo does this in music. They have really, really defined functions. And so when you have musicians who are pulling from the total opposite of those associations, like Luca is thinking about banjo like a post-punk guitarist. I've seen him score like a Stan Brakhage movie with like guitar pedals. Like he's thinking about banjo like that. And, Alan's playing double bass like he's in the Replacements, like it's like that kind of thing. And, Tia's coming from like playing in noise bands and, trying to kill some of the baggage of classical music. And Jay, doesn't really like drums in a conventional way. Doesn't really like what you would call a rock beat. Like it, so everybody is playing instruments that every time we tell someone we've got banjo in the band, there's a thing that comes to their head of what it sounds like. And yeah, I feel like the trick is to just have musicians with incredibly diverse influences and incredibly unique like ethoses, and bring them to sort of really defined instruments, and then you get sort of this strange juxtaposition.
This is then probably the most basic question. What were some of your influences? Give me some names. What else can I listen to understand how we got to Any Young Mechanic?
I mean, for me, for like instrument stuff, just for violin, I think probably my biggest influence is Dirty Three, which is like an Australian instrumental trio. Warren Ellis plays violin, um, and it's yeah, drums and guitar as well. And the way that the three instruments kind of interact with each other, and the way that they build narrative through, yeah, really interesting kind of textural stuff is really cool. So that's usually what I'm trying to think about. I find it like a really good anchor point for like to have that, and then my like classical upbringing, and to kind of be able to bounce between those in ways that feel like interesting to me, because I love a lot of like classical and post-classical contemporary art music as well. um, yeah, Caroline Shaw is probably my favorite composer in that kind of world. She has really interesting stuff. There's a piece called On Track, which I really love, that does all this really cool textural string things with like extended techniques. And yeah, that's some instrument influences for me rather than like band stuff. But, do you want Alan?
Yeah, I feel like you two go first.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, on this record, like in terms of influences on my instrument, like there are a few kind of like jazzy like walking bass kind of things in there, and like just kind of like quite old school kind of bass playing. Like I was listening to heaps of Sly and Family Stone the other day, and like Larry Graham is like the best bass player I've ever heard. I feel like I don't know, he like gets in my brain sometimes. But similar to Tia, like side note about Larry Graham is Everyday People. He just plays one note in that song. It's amazing. It's one note all the way through. What the hell's going? What the hell? How did he do that? Anyway, yeah. But I studied classical music on the double bass, so I guess that gets in there too in some sort of way. And no, I don't know. the The band, it's a cool band because we have like very conventional influence, like even individually we have like quite conventional influences, and then like very avant-garde influences too. Yeah, what T was just talking about, in the sort of post-classical world, there's some pretty spooky, like jarring stuff that I enjoy. So I try to get some of that sort of like chaos and unpredictability in there as well. And in performance too, I like doing that, like making every live show a bit different, and having fun.
For me, I love pop. I mean, I love being able to squash all like avant-garde stuff into the pop realm. And I feel like the two, in terms of when we're making this album, like uh Bob Dylan's 70s, mid 70s period is like, to me, the clearest. Sam was listening a lot to Blood on the Tracks and a lot of open tuning stuff. And so it was like, hey, this is like that. I mean, Desire bringing in the fiddle, like as Bob Dylan did. I mean, and it was like, I feel like that's a pretty clear, you can hear the textures doing pretty similar things. Not the same, obviously, because like Black Country Junior didn't exist in the 70s, but like, it's that kind of thing of taking these textures can do that. But in terms of where I'm coming from, as well into fitting that into that overall picture, I feel like the the two like albums that were like North Stars for me, and they still are, but definitely them, were Wilco's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, like Koche's drumming across that's just sort of excellent. And even though that album sort of got bubbled up in a studio over ages, like I always felt like we as a live band we're trying to like maintain the chaotic element of those sorts of arrangements in a live setting as much as possible, or as much as we could with what we had. And it just shows that like anything can be an instrument, and so why not? It can be a chamber instrument as much as it can be a tin can, right? Like just whatever you've got, you can approach it in a certain way. And the other one is Bounce Mashers, If Feeling Sinister. which to me is actually quite similar ethos rise. Like they rehearsed that together for ages, and then they got in the studio and recorded it in like 3 days. That's like people go nuts over our story. Like, oh, not to be a parody of myself because I'm actually already wearing the shirt, but they literally did that. Like that happened in the 90s. In like I don't know. I feel like that, yeah, that to me is like, hey, you had someone writing songs, they brought to a band, they were really like good, and they had their own influences. If you want to understand any other mechanic, I feel like to me it was always like very exciting for me because like it was like our own version of being Belle and Sebastian. Yeah. Like my favorite.
That's a really good point. I listened to that album again last night actually, and it was lovely. It was so good. There's like more synthesizer on it than initially meets the ear, which is
true. Yeah. That Mayfly solo.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was waiting for one of you guys to say Bob Dylan. I was surprised that it took until Jay for somebody. I just assumed Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan is an unusual. He's difficult to be influenced by, instrumentally, I'd say. There is some great, like, really interesting instrumental work, but I don't think it's his primary interest. I think he cares about textures and what musicians are hired, like what the ensemble is, but what it's hard to actually really grasp sometimes what his aims are musically outside of kind of bringing rock and roll into this really like poetic place. But yeah, definitely like there just came a point writing, or just before I was writing these songs, that I started to notice more things about the way Dylan handled form, or the way he structured verses, or how he made certain lines pay off in relation to each other that I wasn't really paying as much attention to before. So that was definitely helpful in like some of the rigidity of structure that the Modern Shoe album has, I think.
So then, is your answer Bob Dylan for influences?
Let's go with Bob.
You know. I think that's a good answer. That's fair. And even with Bob, similarly to you guys, you've started to mention about live performances. What do you guys see specifically as the difference with your live performances versus recording in the studio, in terms of which is more enjoyable, the energy in a live performance versus in the studio?
I mean, I would say at this stage, like for this record, because the recording process of the album was so live, sometimes it feels like they're quite similar entities. Because the kind of concept of the Modern Shoes Running Foot album was that we would try and make kind of the most human dependent record possible, in that it's like completely live and there's no overdubs and there's no edits. So the two songs that you've had so far with New Place and Snug Barber, it's like though that's just the take. There's nothing added. There's nothing subtracted from it. It is just that period of time that we played that song together. And so in a sense, that is what a gig is. But even with that in mind, we've been playing these songs live for so long now that they have started to kind of mutate slightly. And we don't really notice it until we like listen back to the single that's being released, and we're like, oh, we do play that a little bit different now in spots, or like that. It's kind of slightly taken on a new thing, and honestly, now the new thing is also the relationship with the audience, is because we've been playing these songs to people who have no opportunity to know them, or no opportunity to have an association with us as musicians, and now we're starting to get an opportunity to explore that relationship, I guess.
It sounds maybe a little bit wanky, but I feel like there's a difference between the song as like a recording and the song as its own kind of like entity. And I'm interested in like when we play live, in performing the song, not recreating the recording. And obviously they have shared things, like the arrangements are pretty well considered, so I'm trying to mostly realize that when we play it live. But yeah, I don't know, that I think that's why it morphs, because the song is its own kind of thing, and the recording is like a really specific document. And both are really cool and lovely, and it's nice to reference back to the recording and be like, oh, I could add this back into my part, or played this in this particular way.
Yeah,
Because when we're doing it live, to record it, like there are things that only happened on that recording and never again, either because they were mistakes or we were still kind of making it up, or yeah, just some kind of freak decision on the day. Only like small things, nothing that's like crazily noticeable. But
yeah, we'd only when we recorded it, we only rehearsed the album just enough for it to work. So there's certain things that like since we've made the album, we've probably gotten better at playing certain things.
Yeah, I've got a few clangers on there.
Yeah, but there's also the element of like that kind of middle point of like just getting to familiarity with the song or just getting to know a song is kind of the hardest thing to capture, because it does eventually smooth out. You kind of have this familiarity with a song where there's only so weird it's going to go because you know it so well by that point. You're kind of hearing a little bit of flying by the seat of our pants, but not so much that we're like totally underprepared and cooking the goose or anything like that. Yeah.
Well, so then what's the energy that you tried past tense, tried to create in the did you try to create an energy that's similar to a live performance, or do you think it was almost like a nice, close, personal room of like intimate is the word I'm looking for? Yeah. Or did you think about how it would relate to performing it live?
That's interesting. No, I think probably the latter in terms of like it, as long as it felt good in the room, then we've probably got it. Like, I definitely wasn't thinking about trying to create like the atmosphere of like, I don't want the record to feel like you're at a gig. Like that's not, I want it more to feel like, you've stepped into a room and there happens to be like a band in there and they'll let you hang there as long as you're chill, kind of vibe. Like, there's a movie called Memoria that Tilda Swinton's in. There's an amazing scene. It's like the film is basically all about sound. Tilda Swinton plays a character who is kind of haunted by this sound that she keeps hearing and is kind of attempting to recreate it, and she doesn't know what it is, and she kind of is going on this massive journey to try and find the origin of this sound, basically. And there's a scene after all of this kind of fierce surrounding sound. There's this amazing scene where she just steps into this room. It's almost like a university or something. And there's this jazz band just like ripping it up, and they sound amazing. And it's just this like kind of, you get 5 minutes of just unbroken like beautiful music, and you just kind of watch this performance with her. And that's kind of how I would want it to feel. That's kind of the feeling of it, and that is sometimes hard to replicate in an actual live performance, but that is something that you do get with recorded music, where you can kind of have your cake and eat it too a little bit.
That question did just remind me that, like, when we were recording it, I remember thinking at the time, like, I wonder if we'll ever play this live. Like, I wonder if we'll ever gig this record. I don't really know what the uncertainty was there, but I do remember having that thought. So I guess, just to further reiterate what Sam's saying, is, I don't think we were thinking about the gig necessarily.
Yeah.
With some of the instrument stuff, I'll toss a question over to Alan. When you're playing the double bass and also some of the stuff, the electric bass, how do you decide which is the vibe that you want to go for, especially having the classical background? So I'm sure you lean towards the one, but then also knowing that if you're trying to market yourselves as a pseudo indie rock band, alt folk, I think that from my knowledge, there's very few other bands that have someone standing with a double bass on stage, which I think is very cool and something that, again, is very unique about you guys. But so how do you decide between the sounds of the double bass versus just, not to say just an electric bass, but
sure. Yeah, it's a good question, because I guess the double bass can do a lot of stuff, really. I don't know, you just sort of want to play the song like the best the best that you can. And like usually the first idea that you have is like one of the better ones, but then it's kind of like if you like keep looking, maybe there's a better one somewhere along the way. But sometimes it takes a very, very long time to get there. And then you just kind of end up going back to the first idea. So it's kind of like it's just instinct, I guess. But in terms of, exploring different things on my instrument, like that's, yeah, I enjoy doing that. But I fall back into a few kind of like different modes, I suppose, like home modes, like, especially on the back half of this record. I'm doing a lot of like walkie stuff. And just because I thought that was appropriate at certain points. And then there's this kind of like, some very thumpy kind of stuff that I'm doing with Jake and on like some of the rockier tracks. So I don't know. It's just instinct. And then in terms of choosing between the two actual instruments, the electric and the double, this the modern shoes was in a way sort of a little bit of a conceptual exercise in that it did have certain constraints and that the instrumentation was very sort of fixed. It was what it was.
We went into it with the idea that there wouldn't really be any electric instruments on the record. So, like, we could still make rock music or still do things that were kind of intense compositionally or structurally, but we were limited in again these kind of acoustic instruments with like strange associations and trying to I wasn't like square peg round hole thing, but that being a good thing as opposed to a bad thing.
Was that a purposeful test you think that you found as a band to of like trying to prioritize acoustic instruments, or do you think that that was something you just kind of fell into?
No, it's definitely purposeful. I think most of the time to feel comfortable in like embarking upon like a recording expedition or like a arrangement or whatever, I do like to come up with like parameters and constraints that the project has to operate in. Especially now with the way recording is, bands can sound any kind of way, and there can be any number of tracks or any number of instruments, or it's really overwhelming. So having a thing where it's like, okay, everything has to be live, everything has to be acoustic instruments, then the creativity can kind of come out of those constraints. And I will say that only recently with Any Young Mechanic have I felt less beholden to constraints, just because I feel like whatever we're working on at the moment is more based around utilizing how comfortable I feel with the band as an ensemble, and like exploring how we can be just like the best sort of the kindest to each other musically that we can be. That's kind of the next thing, I haven't felt the need to impose kind of restrictions of timbre or anything like that, because that doesn't seem helpful in what we want to explore, I think, at this stage. But it's definitely always been very helpful.
Yeah, I think the recording constraints are like about each project rather than necessarily like a philosophy for the band as the whole, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's a useful distinction.
I think it would be hard if to only hold yourself to any constraint, whether it was acoustic or something else, because you obviously want to allow the chance to grow,
Yeah.
Which obviously you guys are doing. I would love to know how your sound has evolved from, back in even 2019 jam sessions to 2021 releases to then all the way now, the current iteration of Any Young Mechanic. I guess starting then with Jay and Sam as the catalyst ultimately
Yeah,
of everything, of how everything's evolved.
Yeah, back then it was when we first started. I was a lot of like listening to a lot of like I don't know like Frank Ocean.
yeah, there's a real kind of neo soul. I feel like the vanguard of the time of like 2016. There was a real like when I was starting to like pay attention to new music, was like the people that were doing the best work in avenues where it was like relatively easy for a high schooler to stumble onto something, were in those worlds of like hip hop and neo soul, and those records were really becoming kind of the the new classics, I guess. And so I was definitely like kind of chasing that whale for a while. But I think at a certain point, somebody played me. Was it Was it you, Joe? Or was it Isaac? I can't remember, but somebody put me on to Big Thief in 20.
Yeah, well, I'd seen the review and pitch where I showed Isaac, and I think he showed you. I think that was the thing.
Yeah, so basically, like, I think around 2019, I was at a bit of a crossroads of like, I'd been making music kind of on my laptop and using sequencers and synths and drum machines and all that, and kind of being into James Blake or those kind of things. And then coming to Australia and being in this kind of place where there's more space and there's more of like a collaborative, an opportunity to be in a band, and thinking about like, okay, well, the thing I'm doing right now doesn't really work as a band, and it didn't 100% work for a while because I was trying to mix all kinds of things.
Yeah, and there was the confusion of when it being the pop course was set up for like rock bands, and so everyone was like, "Oh, you sound like Jeff Buckley." And it's like, okay, well, we can kind of try and make this sound like Jeff Buckley, but then
Yeah,
it kind of didn't work, and it was all this sort of weird stuff, and then there was sort of like hiatus Cody like dabbling thing that was going
yeah,
on, which was kind of yeah. I mean, there was a lot of like trying to realize um
just trying on
lots of
different.
different well, trying to relate exactly because we were studying music and every day it was like, oh, someone Garfunkel, oh, this is amazing, oh, Steely Dan, oh, this is amazing. But it's like you can't like those. We were very influenced by bands that had like, heaps of budget, and so then we try and do it in the uni studio, and it was like, oh, this doesn't quite work, and But it wasn't really until when like Tia joined the band that it kind of was able to crystallize like conceptually a bit more, and especially with the last Wake and Fright album, Touch Hands Pack Sting, where it was like they were starting to get these ideas of like, well, there wasn't Alan, but there was a double bass involved, and there was this idea of recording live being important, and there was this idea of like we're going in a more folksier direction now that like we've seen Ari play, and we've got a lot of stuff that we were initially influenced by was big budget studio stuff, but actually there's a wealth of resources and in terms of human resources, and playing in a band in a room is really exciting and cool.
Take those lessons that you learn from grandiose things and apply them in quite a grounded context. And
Mm.
and I think it was just like a bit of a subtractive approach of like, okay, the way the world is and the way that the scope of music is now, there are so many things. It's just kind of impossible to make decisions, especially if you're, you know, a person like you, Gavin, where it's like you just listen to tons of music. There's so much music that you're listening to. There's so much music you could be making or could be sort of magpieing. So you need to start creating kind of rules or parameters to like funnel inspiration through. And those rules don't have to be arbitrary. They can be based on some kind of metaphoric or symbolic feeling, or just what feels right to you in a time and place.
Yeah, I can definitely see how you came from trying on different hats and like, we're around the same age. So I like also, I completely understand when you say that like 2016 to 2019 of like all that music that was coming out and like Frank Ocean and everything like that. I feel like I was big into Rex Orange County, like that
Yeah,
end of
me
it of
too. Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
that's true.
bedroom pop, what is that? Bedroom pop or something
I
like
guess
that.
so.
Whatever
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that kind of stuff that I totally understand. And then also in the same type of way of the classic rock of Simon and Garfunkel and everything and Steel. I love Steely Dan to this day. I can't even lie. But
Some
and like figuring out what you
can't
like and getting
understand,
to
but I'm with you. They're a fine outfit.
yeah. Have you guys ever seen was it I'm forgetting the name. It's the Broadway show that John Mulaney and Nick Kroll did.
Oh,
Oh,
hello.
It's on Netflix.
oh yeah, I seen
Yeah.
them. Yeah, yeah, I seen. I loved Oh
Yeah,
Hello.
I forget. And then they like, I mean, when I first watched it, I don't even think I really knew that much about Steely Dan. And now when I go back and watch it, I'm like, oh my god, I'm the old person who's like, hey, Steely Dan. Anyway,
I don't know.
but
That
I get the progression that you're talking about.
that rewired my vocab for a while. That's special. It's very funny.
Yeah, I think it still comes out a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Bringing it back to everything you got going on, you got two singles out. Considering you've put out, or you've had the album done for presumably a little bit, what made you put out Snug Barber and There's a New Place on the Market first officially before putting out any of the other singles that you have coming?
Well, Snug Barber was it. It's short. It's 2 minutes. Like, so it was a bit of a like whistle wedding kind of situation, I suppose. Where you know, if you like it, you run it back. If you don't, it's 2 minutes. so no harm, no foul. And it's quick and it's kind of peppy. With New Place we intended to be the first single, but radio kept playing Snug Barber kind of early, and so we kind of took that as a bit of a sign, I guess, that it was a good place to start. But New Place, I think, New Place is the opener on the album. It's the first track. It kind of functions as a bit of a like overture for what the record is going to hold in terms of its themes and in terms of its instrumentation, because it kind of slowly introduces things, and then the textures that you're left with on that song are by and large what you're going to end up with on the record, with some minor variations. But yeah, it kind of sets the scene, I guess.
You said that your next single, you may have already announced it by the time this ends up coming out.
Yeah.
Which probably. So your third single is coming out, you said March 13th?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. It's called My House.
What's the name of that one?
My House Divides.
Oh, I was just listening to that on YouTube earlier.
Oh, really? There you go.
I was just listening to the live version and going, oh, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was going to be a song that I didn't know. Okay, so I actually, as somebody who's heard that song now, I wasn't sure if it was going to be something I'm not knowledgeable on. What do you think makes that has a little bit more of a swing, I feel like, than the other ones? And I mean, it is definitely a little bit more banjo heavy, I feel like, probably than the other ones. But why is that the third one, the third single released, in terms of, to the naked eye, to the world? Any Young Mechanic is still pretty new, so everything that you're putting out, I feel like, I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, feels very purposeful. Why would My House Divides be the third one, and what are you hoping that people take away from that as opposed to the other singles?
I don't know. It's funny. Like, I'm glad you're reminding me of that, because there's something like, well, to go back to John Mulaney for a second, there's something that he said about his like failed sitcom that he did, Mulaney.
Yeah.
Where because he'd been working on it so long, he thought the audience knew all the characters as well as he did. And so he was making a lot of decisions that with scenarios that were just not developed enough, because the audience had not been living with those characters for 3 or 4 years like he had in his brain. In his head, those episodes are as popular as the Seinfeld episodes, you know what I mean? But it's kind of like that with these songs, in the sense where, like, well, we've all been sitting with them for so long that it becomes very hard to make decisions based around, like, and if somebody had never ever has no awareness of this whatsoever, this is what they would take. But I guess my hope is that we've covered three pretty disparate spaces, in terms of tempo, in terms of groove or style, with these first three songs. There is a bit of a real estate theme, which is kind of one of the few things that there is to think about in Adelaide, unfortunately, is like you're just thinking about real estate all the time.
In terms of that there's not enough real estate, or that there's too much real estate?
It's well, not enough for the people who need it.
Yeah,
too much for
the wrong real estate.
Yeah, there's a bit of it. Well, like anywhere, there's a bit of an inequality, but it's also it's one of the main things that people talk about is house deposits, and it's a real topic of conversation. But I also think we wanted this one to come out before we were in America, because it's kind of our most groveling sort of plea to American audiences, I guess, in that, like, hey, you guys remember this? This is like kind of your thing that we're stealing here. It's that wasn't necessarily my intention when we made it, but now that we are actually going, I think it'd be interesting for people to have some kind of awareness of that song when we're actually playing shows.
Are there any other singles that are coming out before you guys are coming to the US? Well, North America.
One more.
Yeah, there'll be one more in April.
That's a song called "Pretty Strange World."
Yeah.
So that'll be out in April. And then I think then the next single that will come out will be in the UK, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. So Jay sequenced the record. That's the other kind of thing to know about the band, is that's something that Jay's really good at, and they did the same thing on the Caps Lock compilation. Um, so we haven't really talked. We've talked a little bit about how that factors into single release, but I don't know if you did. You have anything on that, Dave?
Oh yeah, not a ton. I mean, the I didn't think that there was going to be so many singles when I
Yeah,
sequenced the album. I hadn't even thought that far ahead. I mean, like, I just like to think about how the record flows, and then in selecting singles, sometimes you can get in your head about oh, the singles are only this, that, the other. But basically, the entire first half of the album is going to end up being singles. But I just I don't know. I think single selection and releasing singles and that kind of thing is a real label commercial arm thing. I don't know. I don't like listening to singles personally. I often have a thing about
that's
like if
true.
I like an artist, I don't really go in for listening to the singles because I'll just listen to the album anyway. And I don't want to spoil that experience because a lot of the albums I really loved discovering. Like I just listened to If You're Feeling Sinister, which Bell and Sebastian, they wouldn't sign to a label if they made them put out singles. Like they literally just didn't do it. So I don't think about that sort of thing when it comes to stuff. But I'm happy to defer. But I did want Snug Barber to be a single. That was my only. That
Yeah,
was my only thought.
I don't honestly hadn't in my floundering for the previous answer, Gavin. I feel like that was where I was hoping to get to was I kind of forgot. I actually don't really listen again. Don't really listen to any singles at the moment. Um, I if I hear good word of mouth, I'll just listen to the record when it comes out. So the idea of people listening to our singles is kind of foreign to me in a way of like somebody being like, oh yeah, this new song by this hot new band. It's like it's actually not a mode of being that I have very often, unless it's like somebody in the scene that I'm like friends with.
Mm.
If somebody tells me there's a good record out, like I'll listen to it. Like the new dry cleaning record, I really like. And I was like, wow, that's great. They just put the record out, and I'm looking in the streamings, and it's like, oh no, they put tons of singles out, and like I'm sure I would have liked these singles, but I had no awareness of it. I only know it as a whole and as a kind of experience. I feel like a lot of us listen to music that way, pretty album based. Alan and Jay are big CD heads. I mostly listen to records. Um, yeah, that's true.
Nice. Oh, beautiful. Oh,
Yeah.
gorgeous. Love that. You got
Yeah,
to save one for me, Jay.
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
order
Of course, yeah. No, talk to Caps Lock Distribution.
Oh, you think I'm not in their DMs all the time? Tia can tell you. I get what you're saying, Seb, and I think even personally, I've definitely started listening to albums more as a whole once I got into like record collecting. It's very much as a whole.
Yeah,
The problem for me is I don't have access to your whole album, so I don't want to wait until
I mean,
the
I
American
We can give
summer
you
to listen to it.
do you want the
We'll
record?
link you the record.
Send it to me. I won't leak it, but I would love to listen to it. But please, to kind of round it out, because again, I don't want to take away your whole what is now afternoon, and I'm sure that you guys have lunch to get to at this point. You very exciting. You guys are touring the U.S. I know I'm excited, and I will be there. I'll see you guys there at Mercury Lounge. But so briefly, please tell me a little bit about how that came to be, and let's get divisive. What city are you the most excited to play
I mean, I'm pretty stoked about the Mercury, to be honest. Like, I've read maybe in the bathroom. I know what went on there. Like that's a pretty big step for us. But I'm personally very excited to go to Chicago, and play there. We're also all going to get to see Bill Callahan the night before, which I'm kind of mostly excited about seeing Bill Callahan actually now. But I don't know. We've kind of got some good cities.
You do, and that's why I say, and I'll list them off. I'll put them on screen. You guys are playing in Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, Toronto, making it a North American tour, not just U.S., and then finally ending in New York. I think it's great and I mean, I might be a little biased because Mercury Lounge is probably my favorite venue. Definitely one of my favorites. I love Mercury Lounge. I think it's such a great size. Have any of you guys played not even just in New York, but anywhere in America?
I did some choral tours back in the day when I was in high school, but I've never done, never been a contemporary musician. In
True. U.S. tour.
I've done some music education work in New York. I've been there twice for for that kind of thing. So yeah, I was part of a project at Carnegie Hall, but it was like a work for kids. So that was really nice. But I'm really looking forward to doing band stuff in New York.
Yeah.
That'll be crazy. But yeah, the States in general. I don't know. I'm kind of not really believing that it's happening, as was kind of the case last year when we toured the UK and EU. Yeah, won't believe it till I'm on the plane, kind of thing. It's too strange to think about. Also,
Yeah.
it's just a strange time in the world right now. So
Well, I mean,
very
we don't need to get into how now is
No.
not a great time for you to come here.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I'm like counting down until you guys pull up. Objectively, I'm
Hold
like,
on,
you
hold on,
shouldn't
Gavin.
come here.
We'll make it. Don't worry. We're gonna fix it. It's gonna be all right.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I mean, and the good thing about a lot of those American cities is you can try a lot of marketing hijinks. You can wander around. We can employ one of those guys that stays really still. We can kind of get them involved in the kind of rollout.
Yeah, get like a Times Square Elmo and
Yeah,
like
that's the
hand
kind of
out
thing that can
flyers
happen
for you.
in New York that we can't, that smoke a cigarette with me kind of situation that one guy did. It can happen over there.
Exactly.
So we're gonna
Are you guys busing it or are you flying? Because that'd
Flying.
be a lot to. Yeah, that'd be a lot to.
Yeah. I don't think it quite works out to not fly.
No.
Be nice to do the bus thing at some point though.
I would really enjoy that because there's lots of parts of kind of rural America I'd be very interested in. There are so many universities, in different states. It's like, and by the way, this university holds the entire archive of this filmmaker's stuff, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
better get over there then, that kind of thing.
And there are, I mean, as is with any country, there's always random cities where it's like big music cities like Nashville and Detroit are also like huge music. Every city kind of has their own scene, as is with Australia. And we didn't. And next time we'll have to get much more into Adelaide, because from the looks of it on the outside, it seems like Adelaide is unique, but also, I mean, I guess if you look at any city long enough, you can find a bunch of musicians. But I think what you guys are doing in Adelaide is very unique and special and very cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Especially with Caps Lock. So we'll definitely, I will definitely have you guys back on to talk about Caps Lock, because that can be, I know that can be a whole other hour, and I'm very excited that you guys are doing that. Actually, in regards to Caps Lock, are you guys going to be recording any of your North American shows? And if not, might I suggest recording it? I don't know how hard that is.
That's a good thought. That would be good to do. We got
as well
some recordings from some of the shows in the UK, and they were really nice to have. So
yeah,
that's a good thought.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you talk about how it seems like being able to play everything live is so important, especially to this album. Although the whole album won't even be out, I'm sure you'll be playing all the songs from it.
Yeah.
But I would assume, again, thinking into the future, that this album would go really well as a live album if everything's meant to be played live.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to record some shows. I like the idea of recording a show. Rather than necessarily doing the whole, like a live album, but a live like a recorded show would be cool. Yeah,
just for archival purposes, it's always fun to have those things around.
Yeah, I mean, you could pull a Jack White. I'm looking at my CDs or my records. Some of half of my records are right here. My CDs are over there, but I have 2 Jack White CDs that are then the 2 full shows that I went to, where it was like him in Brooklyn and him in Connecticut.
Yeah, and he does all that third man stuff where it's like live direct to like a record acetate, right?
Acetate, yeah. Oh, yeah. You guys should. I don't know which one he records it at, but you should stop through there. Those are very cool releases too.
I would happily.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for giving the time. I really appreciate it. Any final thoughts?
Well, my final thought is it's been very nice to speak to you, Gavin.
Yeah, it's been really awesome.
I've really, really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Thanks, Gavin.
It's really nice to talk to someone who cares and like clearly like, is not just like been handed some sheet, like it's really, you can tell the difference. And I really, really appreciate the time that you've taken to get to know us and get to know the scene.
I wish that somebody gave me this sheet. It took a lot of typing. The last final kind of official thing, where can people find you? And you can again shout out the tour. What would you guys like to shout out?
That's a good one. What the hell?
Like we're everywhere that we're meant to be. I think YouTube is like what
like
feels
YouTube.
like the special place. Like, you know, the music's on all the streaming services and we have a website where all the tour dates and tickets are. But YouTube is nice. I feel like it's preserving a bit of like old internet feel
Yeah.
that can be harder and harder to come by. So yeah, we intend to like keep putting up live videos. Some of the ones that are up there, I don't know, shot on someone's phone. A couple of them are on like a little camcorder or like a
Yeah.
digital camera. So, and then it's nice to put obviously like the music videos, which we've been working on, and the live, like really nicely recorded videos as well. So that feels like a really nice place to hear the music.
Yeah, there's more treasure hunting to be done there, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
You know, as far as tour goes, to all you folks in the States, anyyoungmechanic.com, please buy tickets
Buy a
to
ticket.
come and see us. But yeah, YouTube I feel like is where we probably
And paper route.
put them.
Sign up to the
Yeah,
newsletter.
yeah, those places
stuff
are
in there.
where the most substance is. And if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, I will check and see if you've posted videos of your own. I will watch them, if they're public, of course.
Yeah, I think that's good. I'll put the links to your concerts, to sign up for the paper route. Also, actually, another plug for you guys. You have you're on the Caps Lock compilation record through Impressed. You can link that, as well as you have a 7-inch through Impressed, but now you also just announced a 7-inch through Warner Music. Was it?
True, yeah.
Yeah. We like to make
7-inch galore.
physical thing
Yeah,
as much as possible.
yeah. I'm really excited about. It's great to have like records out in the world because it feels so much more. The connection is a lot more palpable with people, and people buying records feels a lot nicer than 1,000 times that amount of streams. So that's always the thing to take it back to.
And I'm sure I was gonna say it must be very cool to see your music on physical media, but you've been DIY making it on physical media. I'm sure the real kicker will be once you see your record in a record store where you're not the one to have put it there.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah, big time, big time. I went into one of our local record stores, and the guy behind the counter I know because I've been going there for ages, and he was like, "Look what just came in," and he had the impressed like 7-inch there, and that was cool. I was like, "Oh, we didn't have to give that to you. You like ordered that in."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the whole LP,
Yeah,
the whole
having
package of the
record will
LP,
be
the Modern Shoe album being, you know, in my hands will be probably more emotional than I really want to acknowledge.
cool.
Thank you guys so much. We'll put all those links for everything down below, and hopefully the first of many.
Yeah, thanks,
So-
Gavin.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Gavin.
Thank you guys.
It's been a real privilege. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lovely.